what a great spot to bring in Arash Madani a couple minutes earlier than scheduled on that about info getting out ahead of the scheduled announcing to the team. Arash, you know a little bit about that kind of stuff. Let's just start with the Dolphins and segue over to the CFL. Do you think this is the right move by Flores to make a quarterback switch?
Ryan Fitzpatrick already knew from the jump he was the placeholder. I just don't understand the timing of it now. I look at the schedule for the Dolphins coming up, and it's going to be a week one after the Rams. But you have a bye week. You give your young kid a chance to do this. I just wonder what kind of impact this may have on a locker room. For the first time in 25 years, the AFC East is a winnable division. What message are you sending when the vet has you right in the hunt for a division title?
That's the point, 3-3. But you know yourself. You never know what's going on in a locker room. A pretty good friend of mine used to coach Fitzpatrick, and he doesn't care for him. So maybe the guy.
I know he does.
Right. So
and he didn't then when they were in Buffalo together. And I think your friend's evaluation was wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, obviously, I mean, how much longer has Fitzpatrick survived in the NFL since your friend coached him there? It's coming up on a decade.
I'm just saying he didn't say he wasn't talented. He didn't like his attitude. Or maybe his personality, but you sniffed that one out pretty good. Well done, sir.
Right. It was interesting, though, that Fitzpatrick said, other than Buffalo, for the first time ever, he felt that this was his team. This was his locker room in Miami, and then they made the switch. Cool.
So, okay, the big rumor. I have so many questions to get to you. I hope you got some time here.
Yes, sir.
One that Trevor Lawrence may skip the draft this year, stay another year at Clemson because he doesn't want to go to the Jets. I would have a tough time believing that. Have you heard that?
I haven't. Now, look, if we were having this conversation last year at this time, it looked like the Dolphins were tanking. And it looked like the Dolphins were the hopeless team. The Dolphins weren't going to win a game. And the Dolphins were going to have the number one overall pick. And then obviously Joe Burrow goes to Cincinnati because it was the Bengals. Now, the Jets do look hopeless. They have one of the worst head coaches in the history of football. And they're on the long road to nowhere. I'm just not fully convinced that somehow, some way they can't get a win. And if they do, will there be another 1-15 team? Well, I guess all I'm saying is, Roddy, I'm not sure the Jets are going to have the number one overall pick. I think it's just a little too early in mid-late October to make that proclamation, despite how awful they are.
Yes, and I'm with you, and I don't even, from what I've read about Trevor Lawrence, and I know guys that know him, that doesn't make sense that he would do that. Vikings made a trade today. Are they tanking for Trevor?
I hope so. Because Kirk Cousins is hopeless, and they're on the long road to nowhere without him. But they now have to sell off assets, and so it was a complete mismanagement of that asset. What they gave up to get Yannick, and now they move him over to Baltimore. But the Vikings, by the time they get good again, Rod, this whole nucleus is going to be gone. The Harrison Smiths, the Anthony Barrs, although he's on IR right now. I think Dalvin Cook, you still can keep around for a bit, and Justin Jefferson looks to be the real deal. But if you can get real value for Kyle Rudolph, for Harrison Smith, for Anthony Harris, you absolutely unload, and you have to start over again. The challenge in Minnesota, Roddy, and you know how this game goes, the head coach and GM in August just got contract extensions. So what are you going to do? Are you going to part ways? Are they going to be on board with a rebuild, et cetera, et cetera? So that mess is ongoing.
No kidding. Okay, so switching gears to a happier topic, I think. I saw Mark Shapiro's media availability yesterday with the Blue Jays, and I saw on the graphic on the screen on Sportsnet that Shapiro's contract's up at the end of this year. Should he be renewed? Yeah, what do you think about where this team is going? I personally think he should. What do you think?
I think he will be renewed. Moving forward this offseason, in baseball especially, because there's no salary cap, I'm interested to see, coming off a season where there were no revenues whatsoever other than broadcast money, what is spending going to be like? look, George Springer is going to make his money. He's the premier free agent coming out of baseball right now. But what else? What will Marcus Stroman command? What will even a Jackie Bradley Jr. get on the open market? Freddie Freeman's going to be up with Atlanta. After COVID, let's understand the Chicago Cubs, for instance, Rod, are discussing losses of up to $140 million this season. So when you're not in a cap league, what do? I think at this point of things, with the instability in the entire industry, it makes a ton of sense to keep Shapiro. Obviously, they snuck into the playoffs this year. They have a young core that's on the way up. If you're a Blue Jay fan, Roddy, the encouraging note from Shapiro yesterday was, we are going to approach this offseason like we did last. And last offseason, they brought in Hyun-Jin Ryu, a front-of-the-line ace pitcher. So that's an encouraging message from the Blue Jays president.
Very much so, but it reminds me, his owner is your owner, Rogers, and he said they've got the green light to spend. And it reminds me, who was the guy, the old newspaper guy that used to run the Blue Jays, the tall, skinny guy?
Paul Godfrey.
Paul Godfrey, yes. Same thing. It doesn't seem to me like they've ever pinched pennies in Toronto. They're not going to be the Yankees or the Red Sox, but they haven't been cheap either. Am I right on that?
Well, let's remember 2015 when it was time to go for it. Alex Anthopoulos and Paul Beeston got the green light to add. Not only did they bring in Russell Martin, but then at the deadline, they went and got Troy Tulowitzki. They went and got David Price. They made a business case that made sense. Now, what Shapiro said was, we are going to make a presentation to ownership. We believe they are going to be on board. But outside of Ryu, Roddy, and I guess Randall Grichuk, they're not paying anybody.
Yeah.
Vlad, Biggio, Jansen, they're all on rookie deals. So, in terms of payroll right now, the Blue Jays are very low when it comes, in comparison to the rest of baseball. They have some flexibility and they have some room to go do something. And if they're going to go do something, I wonder if center field is an option. I wonder if third base is an option. You can never have enough pitching, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, man. There was a long drought between good years for the Toronto Blue Jays, and I'm just wondering what's the feeling in Eastern Canada, because out here, people are very excited. And Steve Simmons said it years ago, if you're not selling wins, you better be selling hope. And the Blue Jays are doing that. It's pretty exciting.
Because that young group. Look, Bo Bichette is going to be the face of the franchise. He's going to be somebody that you are going to know. I think Kevin Biggio is a really intriguing piece because I think he played something like 5 or 6 different positions over a course of 10 or 12 days this season. He's a real versatile piece to that whole equation. And wait till Nate Pearson finds his way in the big leagues. Roddy, he throws 100, 101, 102. He brings the heat, and he is dialed in and wants to be, the ace, the guy. So there are some pieces there, and now it's a matter of, okay, let's put this puzzle together. Let's go make this happen. They've knocked on the door. And look, the AL East is the AL East, but a team whose payroll is $29 million just beat the New York Yankees, whose payroll was $110 million. And the Tampa Rays in that AL East division are playing in the World Series, and it's 1-1 with the Dodgers right now.
Yeah. So we've had some viewers earlier on write in and say, are you talking CFL today? And I said, no, there's nothing to talk about. And they left. Just before you came on, you saw me say, we could talk CFL every day. We could be CFL Network, but we would need some help. And right now, there's not a lot of good news to talk about. Certainly your report this week about the fines, $25,000, has got everybody talking. What's your thought on the reaction to that report, and then where we're going with the 2021 season, given the fact that they're saying the Raptors are going to be playing out of Louisville next year? I don't see how that's good news for the CFL in terms of crowds up here.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things. One, the fines have nothing to do with the CBA and the players. Let's get that out of the way. This was a reaction that the league office and the commissioner was upset with the reporting of what was happening in GM meetings and the presentation to governors. At this point, Rod, this is what I'm told, is that there have been some preliminary plans made in terms of mapping out ideas of how they can go about on a return to play for next year based on some different scenarios, trying to figure out, okay, if we're allowed X number of fans, can this work? How are all the logistics of that going to work? But at this point, with anything, not just the CFL, if you're running a music festival, if you're running anything, you're guessing. You're guessing and you're mapping out scenario A, B, C, and D on how this may go. Because nobody has any assurance on what the border is going to look like. Nobody has any assurance on what capacity in stadiums can look like. But when the CFL shut down in August, they said, we're going to use this time to really come together and put a business plan in place that is going to make sense for us. And on that front, Rod, I'm not sure how much has been done. They're trying to figure out a way to play next year. This is the information I've been given, is they're trying to figure out a way to play next year more than they're trying to figure out a business plan. Now, that said, they're going to go to the players and say, we need to redo the CBA. If you're the players, let's remember that CBA goes through the end of 2021. If I'm the players, I'm saying, all right, well, what's coming back my way? Because if the scenarios were reversed, and I understand it's a pandemic, but we just saw what baseball did to its players. You have to give something up if you're the league. And I'm intrigued to see what the league is willing to do there.
Did you see the tweet from your close friend and mine, Bob Irving, who's clearly on Team Ambrosi? I'm sure you saw it. He said if there's no COVID next year, the CFL plays. If there's still a COVID, they won't. And players are going to need to take less money. Do you see that?
Yeah.
The salary cap's going to...
I don't know how, and I understand what Bob is saying. I still think there's a way that COVID is going to be around in some shape or form next year. That's the reality of the situation. A pandemic is not just going to vanish in the next 6 months. The question becomes, will there be a way in these stadiums through social distancing or whatever protocols, to make it happen where you can have X thousand fans come into your building? That's the question. And what's that X number? And will that X number be good enough to mitigate some losses that make it sensible enough to play? But I think even when they announce a vaccine, I have a hard time believing that this is not Folgers. This is not Maxwell House. This is not instant coffee here. This is not instant results and that everything is going to go back to normal. There is going to be a process to get back to normalcy, and it's going to be gradual. This is not going to be one of those deals, Rod, where you just wake up one day, flip on the lights, and it's back to 2018. These are the conversations I've had with health professionals who have told me this. So the question will become, what's the magic number in terms of percent capacity that would make financial sense for the CFL to return? And under that, would fans be willing to pay a premium on their tickets to come watch? Because obviously you're going to have to charge more than you had been charging in the past.
This has been the best that anybody has laid it out, is what you just did. And I guess it'll be up to the fans to see if they do, if they will. Lastly, I just saw from Sid Cixero's Twitter this morning about the Louisville Raptors discussion. I didn't even know it was on the radar. Where are we? What's the report on the Raptors playing out of Louisville next season?
Yeah, that came out yesterday. I'm not quite certain, to be honest with you. I have a hard time believing that the Raptors' home will not be in the United States next year. I originally thought maybe Buffalo could be an option because it's close, it's in the same time zone, it's in proximity to Brooklyn and New York, Philadelphia, etc. It's not that far from a travel standpoint. I thought maybe Connecticut, Hartford's got a facility, maybe that would be a scene. But perhaps Louisville, maybe the NBA is looking, to expand in and around that area. They have a great facility where Rick Pitino's former, when he was coach there, played. So I think they're just throwing some things around right now. But I believe that the Raptors' home floor, when the season begins, and there's talk that may be around Dr. Martin Luther King Day, which would be in late January, would be in the United States. I believe that's going to be the case.
Amazing. Well, this has been a fantastic report. Thank you so much, my man, for the time. As always, go Vikings, and as always, stay safe out there.
You too. One last thing, Rod. 6 days ago, Friday afternoon, what's that prime for? Your news dump? Personal reasons, Ed Hervey? Personal reasons in a pandemic to give up a job that's paying you, what, over $300,000? Look, I'm not buying it. Okay? There is zero stress on a general manager right now. General managers are doing absolutely nothing in the Canadian Football League right now. One front office person told me that they're tired of playing golf right now. You can't scout anybody in youth sports because it's not happening right now. There's a little bit going on with the NCAA. You've done all your evaluations already for present CFL players. That makes zero sense whatsoever. And I saw it dunk on with you. I think this has a lot to do with the Mike Riley situation. To give up that job right now and to have that be unveiled on a Friday afternoon, to me, I'm not saying it's definitive, Rod, but I will suspect that Mr. Hervey was told either you resign or you're not going to be here anymore. That's my read on the situation. And the other CFL nugget I have for you, that at least one community-run team has told its football operations folks, start bracing for another pay cut in and around a 15% pay cut moving forward. So those are the two things I wanted to also share with you info-wise on the CFL front.
Yep. Well, I know 3 Down's going to have more on that Hervey stuff any day. So thank you, sir. Sportsnet's Arash Madani checking in from Hogtown.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.